I was your favorite, my daughter said with a soft smile as she slid the papers toward me. Just sign here, Mom. It's only a formality. I remember how my hand froze midair. The room felt suddenly smaller, quieter, heavier. My own daughter, my baby girl, was asking me to sign away my home, my land, my last sense of control, and she was doing it while calling herself my favorite. That was the moment I knew something was terribly wrong. Minutes earlier, she had hugged me, kissed my cheek, told me how much she loved me. But now, as I looked closer, her eyes were cold, calculating. Behind her stood my son-in-law, arms crossed, pretending to check his phone. My son wasn't there. He never was when things got uncomfortable. You trust me, right? She asked again, tapping the paper with her manicured nail. Tap, tap, tap. The sound felt like a countdown. I asked her what the document was for. She laughed, light and quick, like I'd said something silly. Mom, don't be dramatic. It just makes things easier. For later, that word hit me harder than the paper ever could, because later was when they planned to move me out. Later was when they planned to sell everything I had built. Later was when I would become an inconvenience instead of a parent. I looked down at the page, legal language, big words, property transfer, authority, power, all handed over with one signature. My daughter leaned closer and whispered, "You always loved me more anyway." That hurt more than anything else, because it wasn't true. I loved my children equally. I sacrificed equally. I suffered equally. But in that moment she was using my love like a weapon, twisting it into guilt. I didn't sign. Instead, I pushed the papers back and said something that made her face change instantly. I already handled my inheritance. The smile vanished. The room went silent. And that's when I realized they had no idea what I had already done behind their backs. If you think this story is about favoritism, greed, and betrayal, you're right, but it's also about a mother who finally stopped being quiet. I used to believe I had raised a close family, not perfect, but loving, loud dinners, shared jokes, arguments that ended with tea and silence instead of slammed doors. I was a single mother for many years after my husband passed away, and I wore that role like armor. Every bill, every school meeting, every sleepless night, I handled it. My son Daniel was the older one, quiet, observant. He stayed in his room a lot, but when he spoke, he chose his words carefully. My daughter Leela was the opposite, warm, expressive, always holding my hand in public even when she was too old for it. People used to tell me, "She's definitely closer to you." I never corrected them, but inside I knew the truth. I loved them differently, but equally. Daniel moved out first, married young. His wife, Karen, was polite but distant. She smiled without warmth, spoke without feeling. Our conversations stayed shallow, like she didn't want to leave fingerprints on my life. Leela stayed longer. She helped me cook, sat with me during my migraines, listened to my stories even when she'd heard them 100 times before. When she married Ryan, I cried harder than I expected. I thought I was losing her, but she promised me, "Nothing will change, Mom." For a while, nothing did. They visited every weekend. Leela called daily. Ryan laughed loudly, filled my quiet house with noise. He said things like, "This place has good bones." And I thought he meant memories. I didn't know he meant value. After retirement, my health slowed me down, not sick, just tired. That's when they all started paying more attention. Offering help, asking questions, too many questions. Do you have the house papers? Did Dad leave anything separate? Have you thought about a will? I told myself they were being responsible. I told myself I was lucky. But one afternoon, I overheard Leela whispering to Ryan in the kitchen. "She doesn't need all this space anymore," she said. I stood frozen in the hallway, holding a basket of laundry, realizing something had shifted. That was the first crack, and I didn't yet know how deep it would go. At first, the comments came wrapped in laughter. "Mom, this couch is ancient." Leela said once, laughing, "You could sell it with the house." Ryan chuckled. "Yeah, developers would tear this place down anyway." I forced a smile over my dead body. I joked back. They laughed harder, but their laughter didn't reach their eyes. Soon the jokes sharpened. Daniel started visiting less, but when he did, he talked numbers, taxes, market value, smart decisions, he called them. Karen nodded beside him like a quiet judge. One evening during dinner, Leela said, "You know, Mom, managing property at your age is stressful." "At my age," I repeated. She waved her hand. "I just mean, you deserve peace." Ryan leaned forward. We could handle things for you. Make life easier. Something about the word handle made my stomach twist. They spoke as if my life were a burden they'd kindly agreed to carry. Then came the comparison. Leela sighed dramatically one afternoon and said, Daniel already got his share in other ways. I stared at her. What share? She avoided my eyes. You helped him with college. With the wedding? So did I help you, I said. She smiled tightly. Not the same. That's when favoritism entered the conversation. Not from me, but from her. She began reminding me of every sacrifice she'd made, every visit, every phone call, every favor. You and I are closer, she said often. You know that. It started to feel like a debt. The house stopped feeling like a home. It felt like a prize, and I was standing in the way. Then one afternoon, Ryan brought a folder. Just papers, he said. Nothing urgent. That's when I realized the jokes had become plans, and the plans had become pressure. The day they brought the papers, Leela wore her soft voice, the one she used when she wanted something. She sat close to me on the couch, like when she was a child. Ryan stayed standing, watching. Mom, she said gently, you trust me, right? That question always comes before betrayal. I know that now. She placed the folder on the coffee table and slid it toward me. This just gives us authority to manage things. In case something happens, I asked where Daniel was. She hesitated. He knows. I asked why the lawyer's name wasn't one I recognized. She smiled. A friend. Then she said the words that changed everything. I'm your favorite anyway. She said it like a fact, like a weapon. Like proof, I felt something break inside me, not loudly, but completely, because love should never be used as leverage. I closed the folder. No. I said quietly. Her smile dropped. Ryan straightened. Leela's voice sharpened. Mom, don't make this difficult. That's when I knew this wasn't about care, this wasn't about help. This was about control, and I had already made a decision they didn't know about. After I refused to sign, everything changed, not all at once, not loudly, but in small, careful ways that hurt more than shouting ever could. Leela stopped calling every day. When she did call, her voice sounded rushed, distracted. Ryan no longer joked with me. He spoke only when necessary, and when he did, his tone felt professional, like I was a client instead of family. Daniel called one evening. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. Mom, Leela's just trying to help, he said. Help with what? I asked, with planning. The future. I asked him directly if he had seen the papers. There was a pause. Yes, he admitted. They make sense. That pause told me everything. Soon, help started coming with conditions. Leela offered to take me to appointment, solely if I thought seriously about signing. Ryan said he could manage repairs if I gave him access to my accounts. Even Karen sent a message suggesting I simplify my estate for everyone's sake. For everyone. No one asked what I wanted. When I declined their offers, the guilt came next. Do you not trust us? After everything we've done for you. You're being stubborn, Mom. I wasn't stubborn. I was scared, not of being alone, but of being erased while still alive. One afternoon, Leela stood in my kitchen, arms crossed, frustration dripping from her voice. You always say you don't play favorites. She snapped. But your actions say otherwise. What actions? I asked. You won't help us. She said, you're holding everything back. Everything, my home, my memories, my safety. She looked at me like I was selfish. That night, I cried alone in my room, wondering when my children had started seeing me as an obstacle. I found out by accident. Karen posted a photo online. Careless, thoughtless. A group photo around a conference table, smiling faces, Leela, Ryan, Daniel, and a man in a suit I didn't recognize. The caption read, Big family decisions ahead. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. Big decisions, about what? I called Daniel. He didn't answer. I called Leela, straight to voicemail. When she finally called back hours later, her tone was defensive before I'd even spoken. Why are you stalking our social media? She asked. I saw the photo. I said, what meeting? Silence. Then she sighed. Mom, we didn't want to worry you. That's when I knew. They were planning without me, about me. I asked who the man was. A financial advisor, she said quickly. Not a lawyer. I asked. Another pause. Yes, a lawyer too. My chest tightened about my property. She snapped, "Why are you acting like this is a betrayal?" Because it was. They had met, planned, discussed my life as if I were already gone. I asked why I wasn't invited. "You get emotional," she said. "It's easier this way. Easier for them." That night I didn't sleep. I replayed every conversation, every warning sign I had ignored. I realized they weren't asking anymore. They were preparing to take. The lawyer's office smelled like old books and strong coffee. Mr. Hale had been my husband's friend, quiet, thorough, honest, the opposite of the people pressuring me. I told him everything. He didn't interrupt. He didn't rush me. When I finished, he leaned back and said something that still echoes in my mind. "They're moving faster than you think." He explained how families sometimes apply pressure until parents sign out of exhaustion, how temporary authority becomes permanent, how promises disappear once control changes hands. Then he looked at me seriously. "If you don't protect yourself now," he said, "you may lose everything, including the right to live in your own home." I felt sick. He asked if I trusted any of my children completely. I hesitated. That hesitation was my answer. That's when he told me about my options. Not just a will, but safeguards, conditions, protections that couldn't be undone by guilt or manipulation. "You still have control," he said, "but only if you're willing to use it." I left his office with a folder thicker than the one Leela had brought me, and for the first time in months, I felt something new, strength. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing, not my children, not my friends. Silence became my shield. I smiled when Leela called. I nodded when Daniel lectured me about planning ahead. I let them believe I was still undecided, still confused, still afraid. But behind closed doors, I was preparing. Every week, I met with Mr. Hale. We reviewed documents slowly, carefully. He explained every line in plain language. No pressure, no rushing, just clarity. For the first time in years, someone was speaking with me instead of at me. I listed every asset, the house, the land behind it, the small savings account they didn't even know about, the insurance policy my husband had insisted on all those years ago. That land alone, Mr. Hale said one afternoon, has increased more than you realize. I thought of Ryan's comments, good bones. He had known. We discussed my children, not as beneficiaries, but as people, their behavior, their choices, their pressure. Love doesn't disappear, Mr. Hale said gently, but trust can. I asked him something that made my voice shake. Can I protect myself without destroying my family? He looked at me carefully. "You can protect yourself," he said. "What they do after that is their choice." I signed documents that gave me peace of mind instead of fear. Safeguards that ensured no one could move me, sell anything, or touch a dollar without my full consent. And one final document. One they would never expect. Leela showed up unannounced on a Sunday afternoon. No Ryan, no folder, just tears. She hugged me tightly and cried into my shoulder like she used to as a child. For a moment, my resolve wavered. For a moment, I missed my daughter instead of fearing her. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I've been stressed. I didn't mean to pressure you." I listened quietly. She spoke about her marriage, about money problems, about feeling unappreciated. Every word carefully chosen to pull at my heart. Then she said it. I just thought, "Since I'm closer to you, you'd want me to handle things." There it was again, the favorite. I asked her softly, "Why does being closer mean having control?" She froze. Her tears stopped instantly. "I didn't mean it like that," she said quickly, but she did. She reached for my hand. "Mom, we can fix this. Just sign, and everything goes back to normal. Normal. A life where my love was measured by what I gave away." I pulled my hand back. "I need time," I said. Her face hardened. "How much time?" "As much as I need." She stood up, anger flashing behind her eyes. "Don't let pride ruin your family," she snapped. The door slammed behind her. I stood there shaking not from fear, but from clarity. 2 days later, Daniel called. This time, his voice wasn't calm. "Did you really change your will?" he demanded. So Leela had told him. I updated it. I said carefully, "You didn't talk to us first," he said. "I didn't need permission." I replied. He sighed. "Mom, you're letting emotions guide you." "No, I was letting truth guide me." He warned me politely but firmly that my choices would have consequences, that family relationships could be damaged. I asked him a simple question. Would you still be calling if there were no inheritance? He didn't answer. That silence was louder than any accusation. That night, I sealed the final document with Mr. Hale. He placed it in a secure file and looked at me with respect. "You've taken back control," he said. I went home, sat alone in my living room, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I was the one who invited them. That alone should have warned them. I called Daniel first, calm, polite. I told him I wanted all of us together. No arguments, no paperwork, just dinner. Then I called Leela. She hesitated, but curiosity won over pride. Ryan and Karen came too. They sat around my dining table like guests instead of family. Smiles were forced. Conversation was thin. Everyone was waiting for something. I let them wait. We ate quietly. The clinking of forks sounded louder than usual. Finally, Leela broke the silence. "So, what did you want to talk about, Mom?" I folded my napkin slowly. "My plans," I said. Every spine straightened. I told them I had met with my lawyer. I told them I had listened carefully. To all of them, to their concerns, their advice, their pressure. Ryan nodded as if approving. Then I said, and I made my decision. Leela smiled. Daniel leaned back confidently. I reached into my bag and placed a sealed envelope on the table. "This," I said, "is a summary of my estate plan." Leela reached for it. I stopped her with one raised finger. "You'll listen first." For the first time in months, they did. I looked directly at Leela. "You keep saying you're my favorite," I said calmly, "so let me be clear." The room went silent. "I don't have favorites." I continued, "but I do notice behavior." Her smile twitched. I explained, slowly, carefully, how love does not give anyone the right to control, pressure, or decide another person's future. I told them how their actions had made me feel small in my own home. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Karen stared at the table. Ryan crossed his arms. Then I said it. "Because of that, no one here will control my property while I'm alive." Leela's face drained of color. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means," I said, "no authority, no early inheritance, no access." Ryan scoffed. "So what, everything goes to Daniel?" Daniel looked up, startled. "No," I said. Leela's voice cracked. "Mom, after everything." I slid the envelope forward. "You'll find out when the time comes," I said, "but understand this. Being my daughter does not mean owning my life." Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they didn't move me. Daniel finally opened the envelope. His eyes scanned the page. His brow furrowed. "What is this?" he asked. I took a deep breath. "It's a condition," I said. "A protection." I explained that my estate was placed in a trust, that no one could sell, transfer, or benefit early, that anyone who attempted to pressure, manipulate, or remove me would forfeit their share entirely. Karen's eyes widened. Ryan stood up abruptly. "That's not fair." I met his gaze. Neither was trying to scare me into signing papers. Leela's voice was barely a whisper. "So, what happens now?" "Now," I said, "you decide what matters more. Money or me?" No one spoke. For the first time, the power in the room had shifted. The days after the dinner were quiet. Too quiet. Leela didn't call. Daniel sent one short message, "We need time." Ryan blocked me entirely. Karen posted vague quotes online about toxic parents and letting go of control. I read them without reacting, because silence, I learned, is very revealing. When people stop pretending, you finally see who they are. A week later, Leela showed up again. No tears this time, no softness. "You humiliated us," she said the moment she walked in. I protected myself. I replied. She accused me of choosing money over family, of punishing her, of favoring no one just to prove a point. I asked her one last question. If there was no house, no land, no inheritance, would you still be here? She opened her mouth, then closed it. That was my answer. Daniel never came. He let Leela fight the battle for him. That hurt. But it also clarified something I had avoided for years. Love that depends on reward isn't love. It's a transaction, and I was done paying. With the pressure gone, my home felt like mine again. I rearranged furniture they had criticized, planted flowers where Ryan said concrete would look better. I laughed at my own choices, small rebellions that felt like freedom. I reconnected with friends I had neglected, told them the truth instead of protecting my children's image. Instead of judgment, I found support. One friend said something that stayed with me. "They didn't lose an inheritance," she said. "They lost your trust." I traveled, just short trips, but enough to remind myself that I was still a person, not a possession. Mr. Hale checked in regularly. Everything was secure, unchangeable. For the first time in years, I slept without fear. I still loved my children, that never vanished, but I no longer confused love with surrender. And slowly, painfully, I accepted that fairness doesn't always feel kind to those who expect more. The message came months later from Leela. It was short, careful, polite. Mom, I hope you're well. I understand now why you did what you did. No apology, no accountability, just understanding. Now that the reality had settled in, I didn't reply right away. When I finally did, I wrote only one sentence. I hope one day you understand that love doesn't need proof. I don't know if she ever will. What I do know is this: being called someone's favorite is meaningless if it's used to take instead of protect. Respect matters more than money, and boundaries are not punishments, they are lessons. I raised my children to be strong. This time, I had to be strong for myself. Respect matters more than money, and now they know it too.